StraighTAllDay.com.
To the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to increase your stress tolerance. Now, before we get into this, let me tell everybody, I send out this text message every morning free of charge called the Daily Motivation, guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day. All you got to do if you want to receive this message is text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. Every morning when that Daily Motivation goes out, everyone who's in my text community shall receive the message. You can even respond to those messages. You might get a response back from me because I take time every day to reply to people who are in my text community. Secondly, so text me at that number, first of all, to get the Daily Motivation. Secondly, Work on Your Game University is the place where you get to work with me directly. So if you want to be able to be coached by me, if you want to be able to ask me questions, share your challenges with me and get direct feedback from me on what you are doing, how you are doing it, and where you want to go next. And I think many of you would want like that. All you got to do is join Work on Your Game University by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's the only place where you can work with me directly. That link and the link to my text number are both down below in the description of this episode. So with that said, let's get into today's topic, which is how to increase your stress tolerance. Now, stress can be a good thing, folks. There are different kinds of stress. There's distress, which is the kind of stress that makes a young person look and feel old. And then there's also eustress, which some of you, many of you are probably familiar with eustress, but you probably have never called it eustress. It is EUSTRES, so eustress. Now, I talk about this in episode 1348, creating and using eustress in your life. Eustress is the kind of stress that's actually good stress. That's the kind of stress that you get from, for example, challenging yourself to do something you've never done. So signing up to run a marathon and then completing the marathon. You go to the gym 5 times a week and you lift heavy weights and you push your muscles and push your body past the point of what it was previously used to. You push yourself to make 10 sales calls a day instead of making 5 sales calls a day. That's eustress. It's the kind of stress that you see as positive and helping with your future development. That's the kind of stress that we actually like. So what we're talking about here today is increasing your tolerance for stress. This could be the distress, the kind of stress that you probably don't want, or the eustress, the kind of stress that you do like. How can you get better at tolerating that stress so that you'll be able to take on more and more? The more you can take on, the more responsibility you have. What do you get with that? Power. Responsibility and power are a package deal. So being an ambitious and goal-focused individual, it is inevitable that you're going to run into challenging situations that you may interpret as stressful because you're not okay with the status quo. You're not okay with staying average. So the better you can tolerate these challenges and stresses, the more easily you will deal with them. And then the more capacity you have for continually expanding your comfort zone. So let's talk about how to actually do this. How do you increase that tolerance for stress? Number one topic, once again, is how to increase your stress tolerance. Number one, care about things mentally, but not emotionally. Care about things mentally, but not emotionally. What does this mean? This is when you allow things to get to your head and you address them with your head using your brain. And you're using the most powerful tool known to man, being the brain. But you are not allowing these matters to go to your heart, which triggers emotions. The reason why you don't want the matters to go to your heart, but you do want them to go to your head, is because emotions tend to cloud our judgment. Emotions tend to slow us down because we have to let the emotion process. And what emotions also do is they get in the way of our most powerful tool, being the brain, because emotions will overpower your logic every day of the week. And this is why you need to keep your emotions in check. We are in the emotional management business. I have an episode of this show where I talk about emotional management as well. Let me get that episode here. The emotional management, if I can spell it right, episode 560. You're in the emotional management business. If you have to make a decision It is always important to consult your logic, your rationality, and your intelligence. And that doesn't mean that your heart does not matter. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter to challenge your heart, or not challenge your heart, but consult your heart on the process. But you should be very careful when you are making decisions based off of just emotion alone. Emotions are great gas pedals, but terrible steering wheels. So when you're in stressful situations, you want to use your brain to figure out what to do, and do not allow your heart to direct the process. So I talked about that whole analogy of emotions being great gas pedals but terrible steering wheels in episode 2155. Do not allow your heart to direct your process most of the time. And we're talking about a stressful situation that you need to use your logic for. Most of the time, you're probably going to want to default to your logic and your rational thinking. Even if your heart has something to say about it, you can consult your heart, let it have its say, but you probably don't want to use it to make the final decision most of the time in life. Because again, emotions are great gas pedals. They're great at moving you towards the direction you want to go, but you don't want them controlling the steering wheel of what you're doing, the steering wheel of your decision making, because they can drive you into places that you don't want to be in, and that also may be very difficult to get out of. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to increase your stress tolerance. Number 2, put yourself in increasingly more challenging situations. Now, this does not necessarily entail you doing anything that is radical or even very much out of the ordinary, even though it may seem like it when you first hear this point. More challenging situations are relative. All right, what's more challenging to me may not be more challenging to you. Maybe it's already something you're used to, but is new to me. Which means these can be things that are simply outside of your normal realm of behavior and activity. That's all it means to have a more challenging situation. What's outside of your normal practice? What is outside of what you normally do? You're a person who normally sends a text message to converse and communicate with a person. You could instead pick up the phone and call them, because that more direct conversation where you don't have time to kind of think about it and plan out exactly what you're going to say, because they say something, you say something, they say something, you say something. That direct conversation might be a little bit more challenging for you to deal with, but it's not like it's going to kill you in any way just because you had a direct conversation on the phone with somebody or FaceTime or something like that. So just picking up the phone instead of texting might be a more challenging situation for you. It puts you in a more challenging situation than you're normally in. So that can be challenged for you, and that small amount of eustress is not distress, but eustress is going to make you stronger in the long run, because it's not like you lose your ability to send a text just because you picked up the phone and made a call. If you're someone who will, let's say when you decide you don't want to talk to anybody anymore, you don't want to deal with them anymore, you're the type of person who would just ghost on people. That's a normal thing nowadays. You just ghost somebody. You just stop responding to anything they say, don't take their calls, don't reply to anything, any correspondence that they send to you, and they eventually get the point and they just stop responding to you because you don't want to talk to them anymore. How about, this is just a suggestion, how about instead of you ghosting the person, you reach out to them, or you answer when they reply to you and say, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to move forward anymore. I don't want to continue with whatever it was that was going on, and just have a direct conversation and let them know that you want to end the situation, rather than having the conversation and rather than ghosting them, and having them just eventually get the point that they have to go away from whatever it is that you're doing. How about you just have the direct conversation? Again, instead of ghosting them, have the conversation. Push yourself to do that and deliver what could possibly be to them bad news directly. For example, you're ending a business partnership, you were dating a guy or a girl, you don't want to date them anymore. Instead of ghosting on them, just let them know, look, I'm not interested. I think we're better off as friends. No, I don't want to move forward. And there's nothing wrong with you. I just decided this is not what I want to do. You can do that. And again, eustress. This is not distress. This is eustress. It will make you better in the long run if you put yourself in these more challenging situations. This is the expansion of your comfort zone is what this is. Doing things that are uncomfortable so that they become comfortable because now you're used to them. If you're someone who would normally, let's say you're at a business or you're dealing with some type of business experience as a customer or a client, and you're a type person when you're getting bad service or you're unhappy with the process, you're unhappy with how things are going, you're the type person who would normally not say anything. You would just be annoyed at the business, and maybe you would just not go to that business again. You would just never spend money there again. Or you're a type person, maybe you will spend money there again because you just are holding out hope that they would eventually do things the way that they're supposed to be done. You're that type of individual. How about you challenge yourself to go speak to the manager, not in a negative way, not in a nasty way, not in a way that throws you off, but speak to the manager or speak to the whoever your point person is, your contact person, one of the team members. Let them know how unhappy you actually are. Let them know, hey, you all didn't do things the right way. I've been in situations where I moved from one place to another, and the new place that I moved to was not properly prepared the way it was supposed to be. And I went to the people in charge and said, look, you all did not do a good job here. And it didn't become a contentious situation because usually I'm pretty good at judging character as to where I'm going. I'm not even going to move to a place where I feel like people would get contentious over something like that. Because if they didn't do their job, they just didn't do their job. It's not like he said, she said. We can just look at it and see. So if I would go to a place and I would let them know, look, you all did not do a good job here. This is not, I wouldn't even say you all. I would just say this was not very well prepared. This was not very well done. We just need these things taken care of and everything will be fine. But these things do need to be taken care of because this was not done in the proper way. And you say that in a calm, polite, diplomatic way. Usually people are reasonable enough to say, okay, I get it, sir, thank you. And we're able to handle things. You should have that ability within your realm of, it should be in your skill set. Now you want to have that in sports, we call that having it in your bag. In basketball, they talk about that, in your bag. Your bag is just your bag of skills. What abilities do you have that are available to you just in case you need them? That's what we're talking about here. You need these abilities available to you just in case you need them. You don't need to do this all the time, but anytime you do need them, you want to be able to pull them out. So next time you go to a business or you're dealing with a company and they're not doing what they're supposed to do the right way, don't get upset. Just fix the situation, address the situation, and let them fix it. But you have to be willing to address it in order for them to fix it. I'll give you another example. I had rented a car from, what company was it? I think it was Budget Rent-A-Car. I think it was Budget. And I was traveling from Miami, home in Miami. I was going to Orlando, and then I was going to fly from Orlando to LA, and then I was going to fly from LA back to Miami. So a triangle trip. So I rented a car in Miami. Instead of flying to Orlando, I decided to rent a car in Miami. I would just drive the car from Miami to Orlando, which is about a 3.5 to 4 hour drive. Drop the rental car off in Orlando because I was going to an event. I was speaking at an event in Orlando. I would just drop the car off at the rental car place in Orlando and then just get on a flight from Orlando to LA, then fly back to Miami because I didn't need the car for a round trip, just one piece of the trip. So I did that. I rented the car. And there was some nonsense at the rental counter. First of all, I didn't know this, but apparently this is a thing. That when you rent cars, you can't use your Apple Card to pay for it. I didn't know it was a thing, but that's the thing, that you can't use your Apple Card to pay for a rental car. So that happened first. I got the rental car taken care of. And then I dropped the car off, and you know how they have, when you rent a car, they ask you, do you want to pay for the gas up front or do you want to fill up the tank on your own? And I don't know if any of you pay attention to that, but if you pay for it up front, you're paying a lot more for gas than if you just paid for it yourself. They charge you way more per gallon than what gas actually costs. I always fill the tank up myself. I told them I fill the tank up myself. So I do that. I fill the tank up. I return the car. Then I get the final, 2 days, 3 days later, after I drop the car off, I get an email that says, hey, here's your final bill from Budget Rent-A-Car. And they had charged me like $90 for the gas. I had filled up the gas tank myself. And I paid like $55 to fill up the gas tank. They charged me $90 for the gas. I'm like, how the hell are they charging me for gas? I paid for the gas and I returned it. I paid for the gas myself and I returned it with a full tank of gas. And I told them that I didn't want that gas charge on the charge. So this is a whole bunch of nonsense. And any of you goes to rental car places, especially at the airport, these people, they just process people all day, every day. So a lot of times people are they're not the friendliest people. They sometimes are very rude. These people weren't very rude, but they weren't, I wouldn't call them friendly either. They were just neutral. So anyway, now I got this bill where they charged me $100 more than they were supposed to with the charge for the gas and the tax and all that stuff. So now I got to get on the phone with Budget and I need to get my money back. So I call Budget. I tell the woman answers the phone. I tell her the situation. She says, you have to send us a document that, like, proof that you paid for the gas. And I said, well, first of all, the people, when you return the car, there's somebody who gets in the car and they look at it and they see, does it have gas in it or does it not? That's the first thing they look at when you bring a car back at a rental car place, assuming that the car is not smashed up in total. First thing they do is get in the car. As soon as you get out, they get in the driver's seat. They look and see, does it have gas? They make a little mark. They scan the little barcode and then they say, all right, thank you, sir. Make sure you got everything out of the trunk and et cetera, et cetera. I know they do this every time you rent a car. And who's renting the car has seen this. I explained this to her. And I said, I also got the receipt because I paid for the gas with a credit card. So you could easily pull these things up on your credit card statement right on the app. So she says, all right, well, I'm going to send you an email, sir. You just got to send me an email with a screenshot or whatever of you paying for the gas, which doesn't really prove anything. Honestly, you could easily defraud a company out of money if that's all you needed to prove it. But anyway, I sent it to her. She gets the email and she says, well, it takes, she said it takes like 48 hours for our staff, the people who handle that, to see it, and then they'll get back to you. And I'm like, that makes no sense. It didn't take y'all 48 hours to charge me, and just as quickly as I could pay you, you could give me the money back. And she starts stonewalling me and saying, well, I'm sorry, sir, is there anything else I can help you with? I can't do anything about this. And I'm pushing back on her, and she keeps saying the same thing over and over again. She said it like 10 times. I'm sorry, sir, can I help you with anything else? I'm sorry, sir, can I help you with anything else? And she was just stonewalling. So here's what I did. Instead of getting angry with this woman or trying to argue her down, because she was clearly steadfast on the point that she was having, I just hung up on her. I called right back, got a different person answered the phone, because they have a big company. It was a bunch of people in these call centers. Different person answered the phone. I tell him the exact same situation. He asked for the same thing. He says, can you send me a screenshot of the gas that you got? I guess they just need that for record purposes. But he also pulled up and said, well, sir, I'm looking at your rental, and I can see that when you return the car, it is logged as it had a full tank of gas. So let me go ahead and take care of this for you, sir, right now. He hits a couple keys on his keyboard. I get an email 30 seconds later while I'm still on the phone with this guy that says, all right, there's your receipt. There's your new receipt. You're going to get a refund back to your card. The card on file for whatever amount that you weren't supposed to be charged. And it was done that quickly. I'm telling you all that to say this. Next time you're in a situation and somebody's stonewalling like that, especially when you're dealing with big companies, you don't have to argue with the person, especially if they're being combative and they're trying to stonewall you and they're trying to not help. When you're dealing with a big company, just hang up the phone and call back. Usually you're going to get it 99 times out of 100, you'll get a different person on the phone, tell them the same situation. And usually if you call twice in a row, one of those two people is going to be helpful and they will actually help you get the thing done. But there's no need to get all worked up and excited. As long as you're diplomatic and you have your information and your proof and your story straight, so to speak, then everything will be fine and it won't be any problem. So next time you're unhappy with a business, don't just let it go. Actually challenge yourself to speak up, even though all these examples I gave you, they may make you a bit uncomfortable the first few times you do them. You'll become more comfortable over time, and they become your normal mode of operation as you see them. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to increase your stress tolerance. Number 3, keep life in perspective at all times. Just like this situation I just gave you. I'm calling the rental car place. They charged me $100 extra. And I'm telling this woman, they'll charge me $100 extra. And she's trying her hardest. And she was actually, in the big picture, for her personally, she was successful in not helping me, because I had to hang up on her and call somebody else to get the problem resolved, which I did 3 minutes later. But she successfully stopped herself from actually helping a customer. But that's a different story for a different time, whatever ended up happening to her. But I could have gotten really annoyed with this. I could have gotten really pissed off. I could have went on social media and did a whole rant on it. I could have wrote a long letter to Budget Rent-A-Car complaining about this person. I didn't do any of those things. I think I did post on probably my Instagram story that day, like, hey, Budget Rent-A-Car, your person that was just on the phone with didn't help me. I called right back. The person did help me. Whoever that was that didn't help me, she's representing your company. She's making you look bad. I said that, but I wasn't really angry about the situation because I knew I was going to get it resolved. Worst case scenario, I would have called my credit card company and invalidated the entire transaction and got all my money back if they really wanted to play dirty, but we didn't even have to go that far. The whole point is we got to keep things in perspective, because in the big picture, what was the actual claim that I had here was simply $100. In the big picture, there's no need to get worked up over $100. That means keeping the perspective of the largeness of life. What are the most important things in life, as opposed to these relatively small things that we allow ourselves to get stressed out about simply because of the relative safety and luxury that most of us enjoy in life. The world that we live in today is relatively safe and relatively luxurious compared to any other time that we've had in history. Most of us are not putting our lives on the line every day when we leave our homes. All right, the worst thing that happens to you is you lose your life. Right? It can be annoying to lose $100 if a company got it from you and they're not supposed to. Like in my situation, I had to call and get that cleared up. But I mean, how does that compare to you actually feeling like your life is in danger every time you leave the house? Most of us aren't dealing with that. Most of us know where our next meals are coming from. We have the resources to go get our next meal. Even if we don't know where it's coming from, we know we got the money to go buy it if we want it, right? None of us has to worry about a wild animal jumping out from behind the bushes and killing us. So we tend, because we don't have these worries, like the cavemen back in the day, as they say, we tend to direct our focus towards these relatively small and relatively unimportant things simply because we have nowhere else to direct our energy. And as we dwell on these relatively small things, they turn into anxiety and stress that is unnecessary because, again, what in the big picture do these things even matter? So your task in fighting this is to keep the big picture of your life in perspective so you can keep the small things where they belong in the small box. There's a book out there called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. If you haven't read that book, you should read it because the principles in that book are useful for everybody. And there's a quick book. Even those of you who are not big readers of books, you read this book in one sitting. It's not a 300-page book. It's a relatively short book. You can read pretty quickly. And the stuff in there, the principles in there will be very useful for everybody. But with all that said, let's recap today's class, which is how to increase your stress tolerance. Point number 1, care about things mentally but not emotionally. So put your brain power to dealing with these things, but do not allow yourself to get emotionally engaged in too many situations because emotions, again, great gas pedals, terrible steering wheels. Number 2, put yourself in increasingly more challenging situations. You're used to texting, call somebody. You're used to ghosting somebody, speak to them and tell them why you don't want to deal with them anymore. You get bad service at a business, instead of just walking out and never doing business with them again, actually speak to the manager or the team member and let them know why you don't like the situation. They might actually fix it and you might decide to stay a customer. You may just give them a chance, but you got to challenge yourself to do things that you don't normally do. And in the world that we live in today, often that means engaging more than not engaging. That's in the world that we live in today. A lot of people have taken into being more passive simply because you can do so with the smartphones and you can communicate in a more passive way. I'm challenging you to be more direct and getting direct and communicating with people. And direct does not necessarily mean negative or confrontational. It just means having an actual engagement with a person instead of being passive, having an actual engagement. Number 3, keep life in perspective at all times. All right, you are getting upset because somebody might have gotten in front of you in line at the movies, or some company is trying to get $100 extra out of you that they're not supposed to. You know, in the big picture, it's going to get resolved. All right, you talk to enough different people, you present your case, you have proof. All right, it's going to get resolved. You don't need to get all worked up and excited about this. Again, save your energy for when you actually need it in real situations. And situations that are really threatening to you are very, very, very few and far between, folks. So save yourself the stress, the distress, and instead focus on eustress. The more eustress you put on yourself, the less distress you will have put on you. That's a good point. I can make a whole episode just off of that alone, but I'm glad I came up with it. With all that said, text me, let me know you want to get the daily motivation every day free of charge to your phone. My number is 305-384-6894, and workonyourgameuniversity.com. That is where you get to work with me directly, be coached by me, get all the frameworks around mindset, strategy, systems, and execution that you need for your business and your personal life, and get my direct help in guiding you in implementing that stuff into your business and life right now. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.